And welcome back, everyone, to Who Would Win. Today's Who Would Win comes to us from first Who Would Win in November. Official Who Would Win in November. And the question becomes, who wins in a fight, if we call it a fight? Deadpool, we know the Merc with the Mouth, Wade Wilson, versus SCP-666. Okay, we know Deadpool at this point. Merc with the Mouth was riddled with cancer, went to the Weapon X program, got an artificial healing factor, courtesy of them experimenting on Wolverine, became nearly unkillable. He's fourth wall aware, master martial arts, marksman, whatever. That's not really how this fight will break down. Okay. SCP-666 is a Euclidean class SCP. It is stored. Is to be stored in monitored. Let me read this again. Is to be stored in a monitored closed vault at all times. Site 73 in the Tibetan mountains. Guards are to be changed weekly, must pass a background check before being assigned their posts, and proven free of drugs and alcohol addictions. SCP-666 is only to be entered by D-class personnel and approved testing procedures. It is a medium-sized Tibetan yurt made of tied wood branches and covered in yak leather. The interior is around 8 feet high, and the base of the yurt is around 30 feet. The hut is circular in shape. The interior of the yurt has a dirt floor and appears to be crude as the outside to the majority of the observers. The branches that make up the yurt are wrapped in a rabbit fur. This is all the description. Anyway, it was discovered in 1973 by SCP operatives searching for mountain area regions on reports of several missing people missing persons having returned from the area, given similar explanations, seeking shelter during harsh weather. The individuals would happen upon the yurt by seeing happenstance, having gone out in similar conditions. The exploration team was able to discover the yurt. Only 3 of the operatives present, 2 experienced no ill effect. Sorry, of the 3 of them, 2 only experienced nothing. The third entered a stupor, experienced vivid hallucinations, and muttered incoherencies to himself upon retrieving the team. The yurt was recovered and taken nearby to Site 73, so forth and so on. When an individual with no history of significant addiction enters the yurt remains dormant and seems to have no ill effects. Class D personnel without a history of alcohol or narcotic abuse were able to sit inside the yurt for a day at a time if provided proper nourishment and did not report any greater intensity in their dreams. Individuals who have a history of substance abuse, however, will experience hallucinogenic effects when inside the structure. In all instances, the subject reported being in a location either from their memory or a corollary, or therefore, I don't know what that word is. Corollary. Corollary? Or corollary. Oh, that's a corollary. Okay, I do know corollary. I've just never seen the word. Corollary, therefore, specifically a spot where their addiction was at its most intense. Thus far, there have been reports of a nightclub bathroom, a 1973 Volkswagen Vanagon, a filthy alley, the Blank Casino in Las Vegas, so forth and so on. One subject reported finding himself in a dirty apartment with a prostitute named Chloe, with whom he frequently indulged in narcotic abuse with. Another reported being in their own bedroom with a computer setup significantly more intricate than their own before he was arrested for distributing kitty cat. Child, for the sake of YouTube, I won't say it, but you can guess what I'm trying to say. During these hallucinations, subjects report that they are confronted by an individual referred to as SCP-66-1. 666-1. The description of it varies widely from person to person, with no commonality to race, gender, or appearance or beyond, being typical of surroundings. It will indulge the subject in their personal addictions, although at the start will have a passive-aggressive attitude. As time progresses, the subject is encouraged to indulge further, with simultaneously being encouraged to stop. Should the subject show remorse or a strong desire to give up the addiction, the 666-1 will slowly adopt a more genuinely friendly tone and continue with the temptation with discouragement hallucinations. Approximately 94% of subjects who have gone through this form of hallucination to their end have been diagnosed as having a near complete removal of the psychological addictions, though physical symptoms will persist through natural withdrawal symptoms. If the subject gives in to this being's temptations, the entity will become increasingly hostile. There is no set timetable nor degree of indulgence. If left unchecked, it'll invariably begin assaulting the subject and forcing the subject's vice upon them to levels of extreme overdose. If the subject is not forcibly removed from the yurt during that period, they will die. Cause of death is typical of the addiction, thereby an alcoholic will suffer extreme kidney or liver failure. A cocaine user will develop cardiac dysrhythmia. A subject addicted to video games or television will suffer from extreme muscle atrophy, health issues associated with sedentary lifestyle, etc. To date, there has been no clear connection between who will and will not succumb to the yurt. Actually, the being in the yurt. The working hypothesis is that it's simply a matter of individuals' willpower and conviction. All attempts to interview 661 directly have failed, with the entity either redirecting the conversation or bluntly refusing to answer. The only statement that reveals anything to the nature was a single instance of, "We're not important here. This is all about you." This indicates that there are either multiple entities attached to the yurt, or it's an additional instance of the yurt. There are additional instances of the yurt in the world. Investigation is ongoing as to whether the similar stories have arisen, so forth and so on. So yeah, in essence, it's a sentient yurt that basically is trying to help people through their addictions. But if you're don't want to be helped through your addictions, in fact, if all you want is drugs all the time, well, it's not gonna go well for you. Now, so how does Deadpool interact with something like this? Was Deadpool? And I think the immediate answer here, or question we have to ask ourselves, is Deadpool an addict of any kind? Like, seriously, is he an addict of any kind? Is he a drug addict, alcoholic, porn addict? What? Like sex addict? Let's see. Does Deadpool? What? We can just Google this right now, because if Deadpool has any sort of addictions, that's where this. Because if he doesn't even have any sort of addictive quality, like real addictions, then there's no point to this match because the yurt just remains inactive. Does Deadpool have any addictions? Addictions. Let's see here. Does Deadpool have any addictions? In the comics and anime, Deadpool's primary addiction is often depicted as his work as a mercenary. He has a notable psychological addiction that is sometimes described as a form of addiction or coping mechanism, breaking through the fourth wall and communicating with the audience. Regardless of substance abuse, this healing factor makes it extremely difficult for him to become intoxicated or addicted to most drugs. However, he is frequently shown to be a heavy drinker and implied to get hangovers, suggesting alcohol may affect him to some extent. In the movies, there's a running gag in reference to cocaine. I do remember that. In the real-world meta joke, the creator revealed that Marvel studio Kevin Feige once rolled out no use of cocaine. While substance abuse is an essential ongoing addiction for Deadpool, like Tony or Harry, is obsessive focus on being a mercenary and his various mental health issues, including ADHD, schizophrenia, and bipolar disorder, depending on the writer, can become struggles. So this is interesting because that is kind of where my mind was at. Not the alcohol part, but definitely the cocaine thing did come to mind. But I never would have thought his work would have been an addiction. But yeah, when you actually think about it, it's really the only thing he has in his life consistently. And so he kind of is hyper-focused on keeping it around. Then you add in the fact that, but again, he's not really an addict in terms of a drinker. Yeah, he might drink heavily, but I occasionally can have more than one or two, but I'm not an addict when it comes to booze. Like the closest thing I have to an addiction would be maybe gambling, and even then, I don't really have a. It's an addiction when you can't even go a full day without it. That's when you know it's an addiction. I don't have any personal addictions. I got things I really like and maybe indulge in. That's the thing. I have indulgences. Deadpool indulges quite a bit in sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and booze, to paraphrase a little bit. But as it stands, the only addiction I guess we could maybe argue, based on what Google kind of said, is his work as a mercenary. And you know what? That does kind of make some sense. So, in a circumstance where the yurt does activate, wherever Deadpool would find himself, he'd be finding this being. Now, whatever this being's form takes, take your pick. Maybe takes the form of someone in his life. And here's the thing: because Deadpool is fourth wall aware, He's meta aware. This does make any fight he goes into a little tricky. How much awareness does he actually have of something? Like this, like, does he know for a fact that if he just gives up or feels remorse, the thing will go away and let him go? Probably not. But he's probably aware of the SCP Foundation in some capacity. So it's like, oh, you're one of those CPSs, right? It's like, well, it's like, oh, so what do you do? And then just shows like, oh, cool, but hold on, I got a job to do. Then we'll talk. Boom. I got another job to do. Then we'll talk. And so the thing's getting increasingly irate. And so he shoves the addiction down Wade's throat, which in this case is more and more jobs. But Deadpool's healing factor means this is like, I don't know if this SCP would be enough to kill Deadpool. Deadpool has died before, but it's near impossible to straight out kill Deadpool. Unless you were to completely and utterly incinerate his body, like nothing left. Or magic reality warping, whatever. He can't die by conventional means. This would not be conventional means, but the type of addiction is just, it isn't going to kill Deadpool. That's the thing. It is an addiction, but it's one that Deadpool won't die from. So I could totally see Deadpool ultimately finding a way out of the Earth and just being like, just blow up the Earth. Now, I don't know if you destroy... They didn't say anything about trying to destroy the Earth, because very rarely do they ever try to destroy these things. They try to... I believe it's secure, contain, protect. They try to contain these things. They only destroy things that they deem to be super dangerous, and even then, only if they're capable of doing it. But yeah, by all accounts, there's nothing saying this Earth can't be destroyed. And even if it can't be, like, it probably blows up and eventually would reform when Wade disappears. So, I guess the answer would be Wade, only because Wade has the healing factor to survive whatever the Yurt would throw at him. That's my opinion, though. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.